Stay tuned. Ahead, I'll talk with Jodi Wellman about You Only Die Once, how to make it to the end with no regrets. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Jodi Wellman is a former corporate executive turned executive coach. She has a master's in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, where she's an instructor in the master's program and a trainer in the world-renowned Penn Resilience Program. She's also the founder of 4,000 Mondays, which we'll learn about in a few minutes. She joins us to talk about You Only Die Once, how to make it to the end with no regrets. Jodi, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Oh, I'm excited to be here with you, Dan.
There's so much in this book. There's no way we're going to cover all of it in this brief interview. So before we talk about a few specifics, give us a brief overview. What are readers going to find here?
Oh, well, the number one thing is it won't be morbid. So even though You Only Die Once sounds like, thanks, that's unfun. How do I not want to spend my time reading or listening to an audiobook? It is all about the giant wake-up call to live like we mean it. Because I don't know about you, but it's so easy for me and other people I know to take life for granted. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves living in autopilot, kind of morphing through our days. And so this is that reminder to live that unfortunately most of us need.
And in this book, you take us through a pre-mortem, is that what you call it? Pre-mortem examination. Yeah. So we take a look at our life, and then at the end of the book, you get to, well, okay, here's, when you work through this process, a game plan so that you can live a more full life.
Yeah. Well, thanks for noticing that, because I do want it to be actionable and not just, snoozy theory about how the idea of our mortality can actually motivate us. The pre-mortem, as you highlighted, it's like this deep dive into all things you, and probably no less than, 1,200 questions about what's working, what's not, what makes you feel most alive, what makes you feel most dead, the whole way of ratcheting up our self-awareness. Because let's be honest, we're busy. Most of us aren't sitting back and reflecting on ourselves to know kind of what makes us tick and what ticks us off and how to live a better life. So it's meant to be this awareness. Yeah, okay, fine, with the backdrop that time is ticking and we want to make the most of it. And then, culminating into kind of the world's sort of like a giant action plan about, so now what? So if you got remaining Mondays, like I've got 1,811 left, like that would, for me, would be like, now in light of all that I've learned about myself and all that I've jotted down, my dreams, my hopes, the big things, the things I want to eat, the things I want to do, the goals I want to reach, what do I want to do first?
And the place you start at is we have to face our mortality, as you've already mentioned. You talk about making friends with the Grim Reaper and remembering that you must die, but coming to that realization gives us reason to more fully live our lives.
You summarized it so perfectly. Yeah, and it is a little bit counterintuitive because most of us are really comfortable denying the idea that we're temporary. I mean, it's kind of a crappy topic. But if we use it to our advantage, and this is what I found through research and experience, is that we need a deadline, right? Nothing gets done unless we know we have a deadline for a report, for taxes, for you name it. And so this is the ultimate deadline that when we do pause, reflect on the fact that we're living in a gift right now. And the science behind it is called temporal scarcity, which is any time we have any kind of an asset that we position as limited time only, oh man, the value of it really does skyrocket. And so that's really what we're doing with our lives, is doing the countdown and saying, wait, all these things that I've been dreaming about and putting off, maybe I don't want to put them off anymore.
As you mentioned, this is a hard topic for a lot of people, but you point out in the book that for some reason, maybe talk about a little bit, is that women seem to be more willing to face this and discuss this than men are.
Yeah, that does tend to show up in the research. And reasons behind it could include, there are a couple of theories. One is that women are often more in touch with their emotions, traditionally speaking. And that would mean that, when discomfort comes up, there might be more of a willingness to kind of sit there and experience it rather than want to cover it up and move on. So there's more of like an emotional range there of willingness to talk about fear or to deal with it. And then another reason is that women tend to have different levels of support networks. So if and when they're thinking about the fact that I'm temporary, They can talk about it maybe with some girlfriends, go to brunch, talk about a bucket list, go and, grab a neighbor. And so there's more of a social opportunity to normalize this fear and experience and discomfort, and then use that again back to a more productive kind of action orientation, rather than sitting and saying, well, that sucks. What's next on TV?
So one of the realizations is to look at your life, examine your life and think, am I just going through the motions here, or am I doing what really matters to me, what really has meaning for me? And I think a lot of people will recognize that, but then there are some people who think, I get that, but I'm not sure what really matters to me. How do I find that meaning in my life? How do I discover that?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. And I even like, Dan, the way you use the phrase, like going through the motions, because that sometimes does summarize, the entire last month of our lives, or sometimes even, like a year or more. And that I think most of us don't want to experience. And so, you're talking about meaning. And I, in the book and in the work I do, I talk about life in terms of a couple dimensions. One is deepening our lives with meaning, and the other is widening it with vitality. So in this meaning category, when we are faced, and it's so common with that kind of deer in headlights look, like, wait a minute, I'm not exactly sure what matters anymore. I lost the plot of my life. Like, I've just been so busy, maybe working super hard at a job that may or may not be meaningful or fulfilling, or I'm raising kids, or I'm looking after elderly parents, or all the things we can do in our lives. And we lose touch. That to me is the purpose of part of this pre-mortem in the book, and in getting in touch with and sitting and thinking, okay, of all the things that do matter, no pressure, but just start putting out a bullet point list. And I like to think that I find ways to slice and dice and get people really in tune with what matters now. And that's the thing, is that it will change. And so for some people right now, it's that they really want to make a big difference at work. Or for some people right now, the thing that might make them feel, to be quite honest, the old good old fashioned deathbed regret exercise is fabulous for this. It's that, if you did go tonight, what will be a thing that you would regret not doing, or a way of acting? And I just did a workshop with a team last week where there were a couple people that were really proud of the work they were doing. They were working, doing such meaningful work, and it mattered to them. But they said, you know what? I would kick myself for not spending more time with my kids. That for them happened to resonate, where they said, I would think, man, why didn't I, even when I was at home at night, we were all together and I'd always have my laptop. Daddy always has his laptop on his lap, was the joke in his family. And he's like, I'm not going to not have my laptop on many nights, but I would love for many other nights for my kids to just know that I was with them eating popcorn or on the floor doing Lego. And so that was an example about what matters to him right now is quality time with his kids. And that might change, when they've flown the coop.
If you're thinking in terms of, I'm stuck in this job, I'm not happy, I want to do something different with my life, but you're not quite sure, it seems like you need to take some experimentation here and just try some different things and see if that lights you up.
It's the perfect way to put that. Because I think for some of us, we're looking for passion, and we want passion actually to find us. It would be way easier that way. And so sometimes you use the example of maybe being in a job that isn't quite delivering. My first recommendation is to take the pressure on work to be the thing that gives us meaning and joy and all the things we want in life, and maybe go and do some stuff extracurricularly. And that does mean, like you said, trying things on for size. If you've been kind of even mildly curious about that glass blowing class in your town, maybe go give it a try. Or go order on Amazon the different, sketching tools that you think you might want to pick up again, like you used to do in high school. Or go and rekindle an old hobby and see about sparking passion. Passion is a muse that just wants to be stirred, and it will not come to you necessarily in a dream. So go out there and try it on. And if it is about a work thing, because the zest is gone, sometimes we can try and take new initiative at work again and try to remember what it was like to be new again. And, again, counting down, how many working Mondays do I have left in this life? And that might spur you to say, hey, I'm going to get a new lease on life where I am. Or for many of us, it does mean maybe I do want to go back to school and start over, even though my ego might not like the fact that I'm the new kid again, even though I'm not a kid again. Or I might need to learn new skills, or I might need to go and like I said, start over. The courage to start over, I think, is something that we tend to see differently when we do the calculation that, hey, it's a diminishing number of Mondays we have left. Why not make them count?
So I want to take a moment to recognize the name of your company, which has to do with the number of Mondays. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's called 4,000 Mondays because that roughly is the average of what we get. Women, okay, good for us. We get a little bit more. But roughly, quantifying it is part of this trick. It is of recognizing, we're all conscious of how many years we have, and we're all conscious of the fact that we're going to die. But when we do that backwards math, that can be the spark plugs we need to start living with just a little bit more intention and urgency.
I'm talking with Jodi Wellman about You Only Die Once, How to Make It to the End with No Regrets, and our conversation continues in a moment. If you're enjoying this discussion, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. The subtitle of your book talks about getting to the end with no regrets. But you also talk in the book about if you have some regrets now, there's actually a way to kind of look at that in a way that could have some positive results for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So regrets are funny little things because even though nobody wants them in their lives, of all the negative emotions, research shows that most of us tend to say, okay, yeah, there's actually some value because we can learn from them. And there's this really funny researchy phrase about improving our decision hygiene, which is the world's most boring way of saying we just smarten up. If we do something now, let's just say we spent a summer vacation and we realized we squandered it because, we were just playing video games all summer, for example. I don't know who that would be, but you get to then say, well, wait a sec, that did not feel very good. I'm not going to do it that way on the, winter break with my kids. But what is more fascinating to me, even about this regret talk, is that, yes, we can learn from the dumb things we did, how to do it better next time. Great. But those kinds of regrets aren't even the ones that actually are insidious. Those are the regrets of commission, things we did and wish we hadn't. What is more problematic, and I think exciting because we can avoid these, are the regrets of omission, which are those dreams we have, the paths not taken that we actually didn't try, right? Like, I wish, like, for example, imagining you're on your deathbed again. Would you be saying, oh man, I never started that business I always wanted to start? Or I never wrote that book? Or I never got to the Galapagos, or I never got to write the poetry thing, or I never did, or back to ways of being. I wasn't as bold. I wish I had taken more risks. Those are the regrets of omission, and these are so ripe with potential. It would suck to be on your deathbed lamenting those things. But most of us are not on our deathbeds yet. And we have this chance right now, literally today. You could be the one to say, I'm going to go and investigate what it would take to go back to school. I'm going to go and investigate what it would take to move to Maine, or whatever the things are that you long to do. That's why I call them pregrets, because they're not regrets yet. They're like the stage before, and they're just asking to be taken action upon.
So as you contemplate this, you may come up with this long bucket list of things that you want to do. And you say that's a good thing, but you think it really needs to be more like bite-sized bucket lists. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Bucket lists, I am very suspicious of, because if, let's say, and like I have one, I've got a PowerPoint and an Excel. I've got them scattered everywhere. I love being able to capture dreams. But here's the risk. For many of us, when we do capture the thing that we want to do, whether it's go to Prague or plan a family reunion or like give grandma the 90th birthday of a lifetime, we put it on a list. And unless there's a date attached to it, we close the file or we close the journal and then we go on our merry way and answer 19 different emails and we don't do it. And so it's sort of just this, to me, it's almost like a potential list of dreams that you will get buried with you. Whereas for most of us, we need things in smaller tranches of time. So it could be the list of all things summer, and where it's like, what would be cool things that we want to do this summer that will make us feel like we lived it up? And the good news is that for most of us, it's not that you have to jet set around the world and spend $1 billion we don't have. For most of us, like I'll share with you, like for my husband and I here in Palm Springs right now, we were like, we want to go and get a date shake. And, actually they are pretty expensive. They're like $7 each. But the point is, these are just simple things that might bring you joy. It could be the list of things we want to do on our vacation to the national park. Or it could be the list of something we want to do over the long weekend. The list of, it could be for a quarter. I do this with companies and they're like, this is how we're going to feel alive and know we've reached our goals for the quarter. But it could be just for these blocks that just naturally present themselves to you, that how to literally ring out the experience, the joy, some of the meaning in these moments. And I think those are more manageable to eat.
One of the things you talk about in the book are routines and habits and the roles that those sort of things play in our lives. Because we develop some routines just because it helps us get through the day. But on the other hand, if it's a routine that kind of locks you into negativity, that's not a good thing.
Righto. Yeah, here I am. I'm highly suspicious of bucket lists, and I'm even more wary of habits. And they dull the edges of our lives. No one can deny that if you succumb to a routine or a habit and you just turn off the brain, which is the benefit of a habit, right? It just sort of automates. The risk is that we become highly functioning zombies, and then we don't really know the difference between whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, because we're just sort of going through the motions, like you said earlier. The days are the same. And that could look like just obviously it's the same morning routine and breakfast, route to work, the same reports you work on, the same salad you get in line at lunch every day, the same drive home, and then the same rotation of meals for dinner. And then, it's date night. Maybe it's the same version of a date night again every Thursday. And let's be honest, I do have some sense of understanding of what it takes to be human. And I also need my habits and routines, just otherwise we would literally go crazy. But my encouragement is just every now and then to spice a little habit or routine up. So if you are in the routine of taking the same road home, what about taking a different route? Getting off an exit early and winding around the streets and just seeing what's new, getting inspired by something different. Or maybe it is having a different dinner on Friday night than you'd normally eat because it's the same thing. Hey, I'm a fan of rituals. They can be really bonding and lovely if you're conscious to it. But when we start to glaze over, and again, the days are imperceptible and we feel, it's about the feeling, Dan, that when we have that niggling sense that, things are feeling a little bit automated and maybe I'm a bit bored, I might want to spice things up. That's your chance. Order something different at the diner. Go and do a different workout, shake it up. Just even if you hate it, it'll be incredible that you tried and you can laugh at it later.
There is so much more in this book that we didn't have time to talk about. What would you say are some of the key insights that you hope people are going to take away from reading it?
Well, my number one recommendation is to not be afraid of the math. So I want everybody right from the get-go to do that calculation of how many Mondays we have left. Sit with maybe a little bit of a startled feeling or discomfort and know and trust it will turn into a little bit of a little prod. And then the deathbed regret exercise is a key one that I do get people thinking about in the book. So that's part of this. I think there's then that real reflection about what would it take for you to live wider with vitality and deeper with meaning. Most of us already have things that we used to do that used to light us up or that used to make us feel really good inside, like we had more purpose. And so sometimes it's brushing the dust off those things. And then it's culminating it into this list about what would make me feel even just today, like I was just a little bit more alive. And then it's about choosing one small thing. The risk of overwhelm is great. And I'm not here to then make your remaining Mondays stressful because you've got to fit it all in. We're not going to fit it in. There isn't enough time to fit in whatever we might put on a bite-sized bucket list or a big-sized bucket list. I think we probably get that. But then we just get to judiciously choose what would make today feel pretty cool. What about this weekend? What would be one thing we could do? Do we want to sit outside and have a leisurely breakfast, sitting watching the sunrise? Would that be something special this weekend? And so it's just about one choice at a time, making little choices to experience more of life or to the degree to which you want.
Well, to learn more, the book is You Only Die Once: How to Make It to the End with No Regrets by Jodi Wellman. Jodi, thank you for talking with me today.
I really appreciate this time. It's time well spent with you.
If you'd like to purchase You Only Die Once, I've placed a link for you in the description below. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more interviews you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.